In the United States, democracy has long been regarded as the shining beacon of freedom, liberty, and equality. For over 2 centuries, the country has weathered the challenges posed by shifting political ideologies, civil wars, economic downturns, and even foreign invasions. But in recent years, a new, insidious threat has emerged from within: the potential rise of fascism, led by former President Donald Trump. Donald Trump's actions throughout his presidency, especially after losing the 2020 election, have raised serious questions about the future of American democracy. He has repeatedly exhibited authoritarian tendencies, demonstrating an alarming willingness to undermine democratic norms and institutions in his pursuit of power. His rhetoric and actions closely resemble those of fascist leaders from history, including a disregard for checks and balances, the targeting of political opponents, and a relentless attack on the rule of law. What is perhaps most concerning is the idea that, should Trump regain the presidency, he might enact policies that could permanently alter the fabric of American democracy, using legal tools and executive powers that were never meant to be wielded in such an authoritarian manner. The prospect of martial law, the suspension of civil rights, and the manipulation of the justice system are all parts of what some have described as Trump's dangerous fascist playbook. This potential shift in governance brings with it the dire risk of the United States slipping away from the democratic ideals it has long espoused. In this video, we will explore how Trump's actions mirror the fascist playbooks of history, drawing comparisons to the recent crisis in South Korea, where public outcry led to the reversal of a presidential decision to suspend political activities and invoke martial law. Through this lens, we will explore the possible dangers facing American democracy and discuss the ways in which we can resist this authoritarian threat, both from the streets and through institutional mechanisms like Congress and the courts. 1. The rise of authoritarianism: how Trump's leadership mirrors fascism. Authoritarianism, often associated with fascism, is characterized by dictatorial power, forced conformity, suppression of opposition, and the erosion of democratic institutions. While fascism as a political system originated in Europe, its hallmarks can be seen in various global contexts, including in modern-day America under Donald Trump. Throughout his tenure as president, Trump consistently sought to consolidate power at the expense of democratic norms. One of the most significant aspects of his authoritarian leanings was his repeated undermining of the judiciary, media, and legislative checks on executive power. Whether through his attacks on the press as fake news, his refusal to accept the authority of federal courts, or his constant efforts to discredit political opponents, Trump has displayed an alarming disregard for the foundational principles of democratic governance. Trump's rhetoric often mirrored that of historical fascist leaders. His divisive and nationalist speeches targeted minorities, immigrants, and political adversaries, fostering an us versus them mentality that is typical in authoritarian regimes. His refusal to accept the results of the 2020 presidential election, culminating in the January 6th Capitol insurrection, underscored his willingness to reject democratic processes in favor of personal power. 2. South Korea's recent struggles: a model for American resistance. The ongoing situation in South Korea offers a striking parallel to the potential future threats facing American democracy. In 2024, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol attempted to enact sweeping authoritarian measures, including suspending political activity, curbing media freedoms, and imposing martial law. This move was widely seen as an effort to consolidate power and suppress opposition, particularly as protests against his administration had gained momentum. However, the South Korean people and their Congress responded decisively. Millions took to the streets in protest, challenging the government's overreach and demanding the preservation of democratic freedoms. In a powerful demonstration of the people's will, the South Korean Congress also voted against the president's measures, forcing him to backtrack and revoke his attempt to impose martial law. What happened in South Korea is a potent reminder of the power of grassroots resistance. The public's mobilization and their ability to influence political decisions through direct action proved that democracy could be defended, even in the face of authoritarian impulses. This example offers a critical lesson for the United States. In the face of a potential authoritarian surge, citizens must be prepared to take action, engage with lawmakers, and demand accountability from their leaders. 3. Trump's dangerous playbook: martial law and constitutional overreach. Donald Trump's rhetoric and actions suggest he may be tempted to use similar powers if he returns to the White House. He has openly discussed using the Insurrection Act, which allows the president to deploy military forces within the United States to suppress civil unrest. This act, originally intended for use during times of rebellion or insurrection, provides significant power to the president in domestic crises, yet it is rarely invoked in a democratic context. Trump's potential use of the Insurrection Act, combined with his stated desire to take more extreme actions against his political opponents, could pose a direct threat to American civil liberties. His willingness to question the legitimacy of judicial rulings, attempt to influence electoral processes, and suppress dissent makes him a dangerous figure for anyone who values the separation of powers and democratic rights. Moreover, Trump's potential attempts to suspend constitutional protections, such as habeas corpus, could set a terrifying precedent. Habeas corpus is a fundamental protection that allows individuals to seek judicial review if they are unlawfully detained. In moments of national crisis, the president can seek to suspend this right, but such a move is heavily restricted by constitutional safeguards. Trump's potential desire to bypass these safeguards, however, could result in a rapid erosion of basic freedoms. The very notion of suspending martial law and manipulating the legal framework for political purposes raises significant concerns about the future of the Constitution itself. Without robust safeguards, Trump could leverage his powers to create an environment where democratic institutions are hollowed out, paving the way for further authoritarian measures. 4. Legal and constitutional checks on presidential power. The United States Constitution provides several important checks and balances to prevent any one branch of government from consolidating too much power. These include the judiciary, the media, and most notably Congress, which is tasked with providing oversight and restraint on the executive branch. However, Trump has shown an utter disregard for these checks. The Trump administration regularly clashed with the judiciary, refusing to comply with court orders and even questioning the legitimacy of judicial rulings that went against him. His disregard for the rule of law extended to Congress as well, as he sought to bypass legislative approval for key decisions, including his controversial attempts to build a border wall. While the courts and Congress ultimately played a role in limiting Trump's successes during his first term, the sheer scope of his legal maneuvers and the willingness of some in his administration to push the boundaries of presidential power raises a significant concern. If Trump returns to office, will these checks and balances be enough to stop him? Additionally, Trump's authoritarian playbook also involves undermining the independence of the judiciary, a core pillar of American democracy. The danger here is not just the erosion of legal norms, but the creation of a legal environment where political power supersedes the law. This could set the stage for a scenario where Trump and his allies feel emboldened to bypass legal protections in favor of their political objectives. The threat posed by Donald Trump's fascist playbook is not hypothetical. It is a very real possibility. His actions, both as president and in the years since, have demonstrated a willingness to undermine democratic institutions and push the boundaries of executive power. The erosion of norms, the disregard for checks and balances, and the targeting of political opponents all point to a dangerous future if such a person regains control of the government. However, the South Korean example shows us that even in the face of authoritarianism, democracy can still be defended. Public outcry, mobilization, and political resistance can push back against attempts to subvert democratic principles. In the United States, it is crucial that citizens remain vigilant, engaged, and ready to act. The constitutional protections that have sustained American democracy for centuries are only as strong as the public's commitment to them. The future of American democracy hinges on the strength of its institutions, the resilience of its people, and the willingness of lawmakers to stand up against any effort to undermine the rule of law. As we face the potential threat of Trump's return to power, it is imperative that we take inspiration from the global resistance movements that have fought against authoritarianism and fascism. Just as South Korea resisted the suspension of democracy, so too must we stand firm against the dangerous slide toward fascism here in America. It is up to us, the people, to defend our democracy. Whether through protest, political engagement, or supporting those who protect the Constitution, we must ensure that the forces of democracy remain stronger than any effort to replace them with autocratic rule. The time to act is now, before it is too late.